Welcome to Lingo Ladder. My name is James, and I come from Sydney, Australia. Today, I want to share with you my journey to London, a city that has always lived in my imagination as a place of history, tradition, and endless charm. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Lingo Ladder for more English learning adventures and fascinating travel stories. Ever since I was a teenager, I dreamed of standing by the River Thames, looking at the skyline where the past and present meet. For me, London was not just a capital city, but a symbol of history, culture, and power. When I finally arrived, the first thing that struck me was the gray sky, the cool mist in the air, and the red double-decker buses rushing by. It felt as if I had stepped directly into a movie scene, a city that looked both familiar and mysterious at the same time. Walking through the streets, I noticed the iconic black cabs, the centuries-old buildings with their brick facades, and people holding umbrellas even when the rain was just a light drizzle. It reminded me immediately that London's weather is part of its identity, unpredictable but charming. In Sydney, I was used to blue skies, sunshine, and beaches, but here in London, the atmosphere itself was part of the experience. Of course, my first destination was Big Ben. Standing in front of the tall clock tower, I felt small but connected to history, as if thousands of moments had passed under its watchful eyes. Nearby, the Houses of Parliament looked majestic, rising above the Thames like guardians of tradition and politics. When the bells rang, their deep sound seemed to echo through centuries. I then walked across Tower Bridge, one of London's most famous landmarks. As I looked down at the Thames, I imagined the ships that had passed under the bridge for hundreds of years, bringing goods from every corner of the world. The combination of old stone towers and modern traffic made me feel the unique spirit of London, where history never disappears but life keeps moving forward. From there, I visited the London Eye, the giant wheel that offers a view of the entire city. As the capsule slowly rose higher, the view expanded, showing me a city that stretched endlessly in all directions. I could see the river winding like a ribbon, the Shard piercing the sky, and parks that added a touch of green to the gray city. It was both breathtaking and humbling to see how vast and alive London really is. Of course, no trip to London would be complete without Buckingham Palace. Watching the guards in their red uniforms and tall black hats, I felt like I was witnessing a tradition that had continued unchanged for centuries. Tourists from all over the world gathered to take photos, but the palace itself stood calm and majestic, a symbol of monarchy and continuity. Culture in London is everywhere, not just in monuments but in daily life. People here love their tea, and I joined them one afternoon in a small cafe where I enjoyed a hot cup of English breakfast tea with milk. The simple act of drinking tea felt like sharing a ritual that unites the entire nation. I also noticed how polite and reserved people were, often saying sorry even when it wasn't their fault. But London is not only about tradition, it is also a city of diversity. Walking through Camden Market, I was surrounded by food from every corner of the world. I tasted Indian curry, Middle Eastern falafel, and Chinese dumplings, all within a few steps of each other. The mix of cultures and flavors made me realize that London is truly an international city, shaped by centuries of migration and exchange. One evening, I tried the classic fish and chips at a small shop near the Thames. The crispy fish, golden fries, and a touch of vinegar tasted simple but satisfying. The next morning, I had a full English breakfast with eggs, sausages, beans, mushrooms, and toast, a meal that kept me full for hours. It was very different from the lighter breakfasts I usually had back in Sydney, but it felt like a true London experience. Comparing London to Sydney gave me a new perspective. In Sydney, life revolves around the ocean, the beaches, and the sun. In London, life revolves around history, culture, and tradition. Sydney feels open, relaxed, and modern, while London feels dense, layered, and timeless. Both cities are beautiful, but London carries a weight of centuries that Sydney will never have. One of the most moving experiences was visiting the British Museum. Inside, I stood in front of ancient Egyptian statues, Greek marbles, and treasures from civilizations long gone. It was overwhelming to realize how much of human history is gathered in one place. The museum felt like a conversation between the past and the present, and I walked slowly, trying to take it all in. Later, I explored Shakespeare's Globe Theatre, a reconstruction of the original theatre where Shakespeare's plays were performed. Standing in the open-air stage, I imagined the voices of actors from centuries ago bringing words to life that are still celebrated today. It reminded me that London is not just a city of politics and finance but also a city of art and imagination. At night, I wandered through the streets of Soho, filled with music, lights, and energy. London transforms after dark, becoming a city of creativity and nightlife. The contrast between the quiet parks and the lively pubs made me realize how many sides London has. What fascinated me most was how every corner of London seemed to tell a story. An old church hidden between skyscrapers, a narrow alley with cobblestones, or a statue that has stood for centuries, all of them spoke silently of the city's journey. I realized that in London, history is not in the past, it is alive in the present. Walking down Oxford Street, I was amazed by the crowds moving in every direction, the bright shop windows, and the constant energy. The fashion, the music, and the advertisements all showed me a city that never stops reinventing itself. Yet just a few blocks away, I found quiet squares with benches and trees where people read books in silence. This balance between chaos and calm made London even more fascinating to me. I also visited Hyde Park, one of the city's most famous green spaces. Joggers ran past me, families picnicked on the grass, and swans floated gracefully on the lake. It was easy to forget that I was in the middle of one of the busiest cities in the world. Parks like this give Londoners a chance to breathe and slow down, something I deeply appreciated. Taking the Underground, or the Tube as locals call it, was another experience. The maze of tunnels, the sound of trains rushing by, and the famous announcement "Mind the Gap" gave me a sense of how millions of people move through the city every day. Compared to the public transport in Sydney, the Tube felt older, but also more alive with history. Each station had its own character, and I enjoyed simply watching people come and go. One evening, I crossed the Millennium Bridge and saw St. Paul's Cathedral shining in the night. Its dome rose above the city like a reminder of resilience, standing through wars and changes. The walk across the bridge felt almost spiritual, as if the city itself was telling me to look both at the past and the future. I could not leave London without experiencing its theatre scene. Watching a play in the West End was magical, the performances full of life and energy. The crowd laughed, cried, and applauded together, proving that art is a universal language. It was a night I will always remember. Another highlight was visiting the markets of Borough, where food stalls filled the air with delicious smells. I tasted cheeses, pastries, and exotic dishes that showed the creativity of the city's chefs. It was busy, noisy, and full of color, a perfect reflection of London's character. I also visited the Tower of London, where history feels heavy in the walls. The crown jewels sparkled behind glass, symbols of wealth and power. Walking through the ancient stone corridors, I imagined the lives of kings, queens, and prisoners who once stood there. It gave me chills but also admiration for how much the city has preserved. Meeting Londoners added another layer to my journey. Some were formal and reserved, others friendly and curious, but all had stories to tell. I spoke with an old man who had lived in the city his entire life and a student from abroad who had just arrived. These conversations showed me the human side of London, beyond the landmarks. Language was everywhere, from the formal English in museums to the slang of teenagers in the streets. Listening carefully and repeating phrases helped me practice in real time. Every interaction, big or small, was a chance to grow in confidence. I realized that learning English in a city like London is not just study, it is life itself. As my journey came to an end, I stood once more by the Thames, watching the water reflect the lights of the city. I thought about everything I had seen, from Big Ben to Soho, from tea in a cafe to history in a museum. London had shown me more than I expected: beauty, contradictions, traditions, and dreams. It was not only a trip but also a story I would carry with me forever. Thank you for joining me on this journey to London. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to Lingo Ladder, and stay tuned because the next adventure will take us to another exciting city full of stories.